Hello everybody, welcome back to another Friday and another casual champion review. Today we're playing Gwanda. Oh, I already lost the good version of her. We're playing Gwen. I call her Gwanda a lot because it's a Spider-Verse meme reference. That was a good movie, unlike this character that I hate. Obviously, for some fellas who are mainstays of this channel know that I am not overly fond of this character, and I do want to give a bit of a heads up to all the, oh my goodness, to all the people who actually like Gwen. This video's not going to be very positive. You've been warned. You know what is very positive, though? Fan art section. Look at the Gwandas. A lot of little doll versions of boy. It's beautiful. Can't believe they made so good art of Gwanda. I'm not going to stop calling her Gwanda, by the way. That's just how I've known her forever. But thank you, fellas. All of you who still do stuff for the fan art section. You're wonderful, amazing. Thank you so much. I love it. I've been not looking forward to this one. I think out of all the champions that I've had to play so far, there's a few that I really have just actively not looked forward to playing. Aphelios was definitely one. I didn't really enjoy playing Akali too much, but the thing is I actually like how Akali looks. I don't really like how Gwen looks. I'm also playing Gwendol, or Gwendul, Jungle Gwen. I don't remember if this is a real thing or not that people do, but I'd rather play that than top lane. So I think because she's one of the more recent champions and because she was made during the Ruination, or released during the Ruination rather, that she's a champion that a lot of people actually know the lore for, but we're going to go over it anyway just to get a bit of a refresher on this character so we can judge how successful she is accordingly. So Gwen was originally a doll created by Isolde, the late wife of Viego, when Isolde was a little girl, and she was basically a just created character she made up to be her friend, played with, because Isolde was a seamstress, so she could make things with whenever she wanted to. And she really liked Gwen. It was like a personal best friend for her when she needed one. But unfortunately, that changed one day when she met a mysterious man who Gwen could remember that this man existed, but not remember who exactly he was or put a face to it, which means that the doll was, what the hell? Can't believe it. I'm being invaded by Christmas Wick. On Christmas of all times. The fact that Gwen remembers stuff about Viego means that she was sentient while she was still a doll. I don't really know how that adds up, but apparently her story doesn't really work outside of that, so I guess she had to have been. So she was brought to life by the power of the Ruination, Isolde's soul splitting up into multiple fragments and one going into her, bring her to life and turning her into a real girl. Now she wanders the Shadow Wilds and she finds her old sewing equipment where Isolde's old sewing equipment and turns them into big scissor weapons after being attacked by a bunch of mist wraiths and unleashing the power of the Hallowed Mist, which is a rejuvenating version of the Black Mist. And after being overwhelmed by these wraiths, she's haunted by visions, new memories resurfacing of Viego, the man who took Isolde from her and is turning the world into darkness, and now she's off to go stop him. I would say that's where her story ends, off to go stop Viego, but you guys know how it ended. She went to... What are you waving at, Gwen? She went to go stop Viego, met Senna and the rest of the Sentinels, stopped Viego, imprisoned him on Camivore, once again using her Hallowed Mist powers, and now she's just kind of there. She's just in Shadow Isles, beating Mist Wraiths, I guess. The only lore expansion we got from her after Ruination was that she encountered the Midnight Rabble, which was all these ghostly spirits that were having a big ballroom dance, and she's trying to protect them from the evil spirits that are still in the Shadow Isles, because getting rid of Viego did not get rid of the Black Mist. Also editing Nicky Boy here, we don't even know what the people of the Midnight Rabble even are. A lot of people think that they're just spirits of the Shadow Isles. I personally like to think that because Gwen encountered them, we didn't know about them until now, that they're kind of fractured memories of Isolde. That's why you have that one that looks like Viego. So you have the kind of dichotomy between how the nice pure version of Viego that Isolde imagined, because Gwen is a piece of his soul, but I don't know what it is really. It's all just theories. But as far as her actual character arc goes, it's over. Like, she avenged Isolde, found out that she actually technically is a part of Isolde, much like Maiden of the Mist, and Senna had a piece of Isolde in her too. But her character arc's over. She completed her quest. She doesn't really have anything left to do. That's why I've been thinking about this title in advance for the Casual Champion review. I'm going to call it Gwen Serves Zero Purpose in Modern League of Legends, because as far as character goes, in story, she doesn't exist anymore. She has no goals, no motivations, and I think, I mentioned this in the villains tier list, that I personally would really like it if the way they took her is we had a bit of a Viego redemption arc, because Viego is powerless now. He has no more Black Mist powers, no control over the Shadow Isles. So what if Viego is rehabilitated through Gwen? and the Hallowed Mist. Like a new big bad comes along and they need to team up, and Gwen tries to heal Viego because she is technically a part of Isolde. So she feels connection to him, even though she is not really Isolde herself. And I like the idea of a fun, almost father-daughter dynamic, in a way. I think Gwen trying to rehabilitate Viego and become a better person, become as joyful as she is, would be really cool, because that's another weird thing that they did to her, is after the Ruination, they changed a lot of her voice lines to make her a lot snarkier to her teammates, especially. Like, she's kind of a dickhead to Vayne for no reason, although Vayne's kind of a dickhead to everyone, so I guess that's justified. The weird thing is, though, is because we hark on her a lot for this, about essentially taking the spot of what would have been Yorick, but Yorick would be kind of in the same spot, and is kind of in the same spot, where his primary motivation for existing is gone now. So where else does Yorick have to go? And I guess we'll get to Yorick in, how long are the series going to take to do it? Probably like 3 years till we get to Yorick? So now on to the big part that a lot of people probably come to hear my opinions of, and have heard my opinions of before, and know, and are ready, and I'm sure Twitter's going to come after me again. But her design, I don't like it. I think that should be obvious by this point, that I am not a fan of her. And granted, she is a bit of a victim of circumstance. Gwen released at a time, that small area between like late 2020 or around 2020 to 2021, those 2 years time frame, it started to fix itself in 2022 when we got like Renata and Cassante and Belveth and stuff. But those 2 years were subject to a lot of repeated character design tropes. Pretty much every single champion that released during that time frame was a sexy shirtless dude or a pretty lady. And I will fully admit, in my videos in the past when I've talked about Gwen, I categorize her under just another sexy anime character. And granted, like I definitely did overuse that term before. I definitely overused that term in the past, because Gwen is not supposed to be sexy. She's supposed to be pretty. Her whole thing is that she's a pretty princess, an idealized, I guess, hyper feminine version of Isolde, where Viego is supposed to be like the hyper masculine, which plays on a lot of exaggerated gender stereotypes. Like Viego is the hyper masculine, like spiky, wrathful, self-absorbed, self-obsessed, only interested in their own selfish desires, muscles showing, introverted, all that stuff. And then Gwen is the opposite of that, the feminine stereotype, the big poofy dresses, hyper optimistic attitude, carefree, innocent, wide-eyed. Like I get that part of that is because it's supposed to make Gwen and Viego opposites, where Viego is this completely unfeeling, uncaring person that just wants to further their own selfish desires, and Gwen is this completely selfless, starry-eyed individual who all they want to do is to help other people. Except I kill dogs, apparently. I think it would have worked so much better if Gwen was an actual doll. Because think about it. How much of a spit in the face to Viego's humanity would it be if a literal inanimate object, a doll, a toy, is showing more humanity and compassion than he does, when his whole motivation is to save another human life? Because Gwen on her own right now, there's nothing doll about this. She has the little stitches. It's hard to see on the model in here, but she has the little stitches on her neck and her arms, but they just look like tattoos. They don't look like they're actually a part of her. As far as she looks visually, she looks like an anime character, like some kind of weird DeviantArt Tumblr OC of what my League of Legends princess would look like. And sure, that has its own merit in some regards. I don't think it really fits, especially in the story of Ruination, which was trying to take itself seriously, at the start at least. I hope that turning Olaf and Pike into comedy relief characters, and Lucian into an asshole, and all these other crazy, exaggerated things, Diana becoming a sentinel, that event was garbage. Hi, fish. I hope the changes to all those characters weren't retroactively to try and make Gwen fit better into the Ruination, which maybe it was. I love this doll form, though. I think the doll form's really funny. I wish she was like that all the time. I know we have all these chibi little legends in TFT, but man, if Gwen was just a chibi the whole time, I think that would be so much funnier. I think the reason why Gwen bothers me a lot as well, specifically, is because when we see a lot of champion design concepts, we see all these crazy ideas. I mean, just look at Mundo, for example. Look at all the crazy off-the-wall ideas they had. Braum at one point was going to be this big buff Piltover girl, if I remember properly. All the insane things they had for Urgot, or Akshan was crazy varied in his design. And then you look at Gwen's. That's just the same copy-pasted character with different dresses on. It became very apparent the intended design concept was just to make a girl in a pretty dress and try and fit that into Ruination somehow. And I get it's a bit of a subversion of expectations because everybody thought that the champion releasing after Viego was, because it was going to be related to Sentinels of Light and Ruination, okay, that it was going to be Isolde. Everyone thought, oh, the ghost of Isolde's coming back to kind of haunt Viego or help the good guys. Realistically, in that story, that wouldn't make any sense because then Viego's entire character motivation just goes out the window. But didn't stop all those leak channels and big clickbait leak YouTubers from just going, oh, Isolde, next champion, look, official proof, yep. I'm just sad because, especially during the time that she released, it was the perfect opportunity to introduce a creepy doll character, one that was actually brought to life. It has to learn some kind of lesson at the end. Like, the main comparison I have with Gwen is, imagine Pinocchio, but at the very beginning of the story, Pinocchio is turned into a real boy. How much of a letdown and completely disregarding the actual character arc of the story. That would suck, man. And that's how I feel about Gwen. She doesn't feel like she serves any purpose to League of Legends except being another pretty face to the game. And again, she is a victim of the times. I mentioned this in the Season 7 Rewind, which is coming out, by the way, eventually. But Rakan is the same thing in reverse. I imagine if Rakan released during that season 2020-2021, people would have loathed him. He would have been another sexy, shirtless dude. There's nothing revolutionary about that during those years. But Rakan released at a time where that kind of character was revolutionary. I think Gwen would have been the same thing. If Gwen released back in 2016, 2015, there would be no character in the game like her at all. This bright, starry-eyed person, completely focused on just being this cutesy, anime character. It would have been unique back then. Unfortunately, we live in the modern world of League of Legends where every single character for a good while was nothing but glitzy anime characters and sexy shirtless dudes. So it just became very repetitive and uninteresting. Not to mention, Gwen was also the second chance at a doll brought to life. Granted, that's because Shaco was retconned into being a doll brought to life, but Shaco definitely does not encapsulate that thematic well at all because he's an old champion and was retconned into being that way. Gwen was their next opportunity to take this idea and really go crazy with the doll brought to life, and it's some lady with some stitching tattoos on her. I really wish she'd had some semblance of doll to her at all. Maybe some fabric-looking arms or button eyes or change her proportions to make her look more like a doll, like the Chibi, like I said earlier. Because right now, I think her and a few other champions, Briar feels like this a bit too, where Briar feels like some Rioters OC, They don't feel like official characters that belong to this universe. They feel like some person, hey, here's my OC that I made and I really like them. They're an official champion league now. I don't care how aesthetically different they are from the rest of the game, but I'm going to shove them in here regardless and make them important for the event because I said so. But I feel bad because I saw a lot of comments, and I do read pretty much every comment on my videos, by the way, but a lot of comments in the last few casual champion reviews that people were not looking forward to me talking about Gwen because a lot of people really like Gwen. And, I get it. Sometimes there are champions that are just very aesthetically pleasing to you. Me, personally, I love Cho'Gath, but I do admit he's horribly outdated and needs a redesign because he's just a ripoff of the Violator from Spawn or all the Zerg and Tyranids of the past. There's nothing original about Cho'Gath at all. He's a complete carbon copy. I'm going to steal this, by the way. I've been cutting it out a lot, but Varus has been, let's just say, prime 80 carry mentality. He did not win early lane, therefore support's fault, therefore he roams for the entire game and blames everybody else. Basically, what I'm trying to say is you are not wrong for liking Gwen. If she appeals to your aesthetic tastes, that is completely fine, in the same way that Cho'Gath appeals to my aesthetic tastes. That's completely fine. But I think we can also admit some flaws in their character writing or the design choices or anything of that sort. Just because something appeals to you aesthetically doesn't mean they aren't valid of criticism. Same goes for my redesigns, right? I encourage comparison and criticism of my redesigns because sometimes they appeal to my aesthetics, right? A lot of my redesigns incorporate a lot of different character body types. Like I made Soraka a bit chubby, or I made Shyvana a bit more androgynous because I want a bit more body types in there. Sometimes, do I do that too far? Like, did I make Shyvana into a Lowy body type when I didn't mean to? Yeah. Like, that's open criticism and valid criticism. So I'm fine with that. I think people should be more accepting that other people sometimes don't like the characters that they do. And again, Gwen has her merits as being the, super pretty princess of the game. We don't really have a character like that. So in that regard, that's what's unique about her. She does have, I think, the only character in the game besides Viego that has any kind of Camavoran influence on her, the Camavoran color scheme, the symbols and stuff. So that's nice. But the Gwen we have now, I just really would have rather we got some kind of actual inanimate object doll brought to life, or at least not try and force a character who clearly is not going to have any kind of narrative importance in the future into this major role of narrative importance. Because we saw even in the Wild Rift comic, which if you fellas don't remember, the Wild Rift comic for Ruination had a completely different storyline and completely different ending because Rengar and Olaf and all those other Sentinels besides Irelia and Riven were not even in it. All those characters were not even in the comic book there, including Gwen, because Gwen at the time, even though she is now, was not in Wild Rift yet, so they had to write around the Wild Rift comic to not include all these other Sentinels and Gwen, and you know what happened? Senna wins the day. In the own comic that Riot Games published, it was proven Gwen did not even need to be there. I like the whole idea of every champion released during 2021 was a part of the Ruination, a part of the same storyline, but when you're all integral to the same one character with Viego, once Viego is dealt with, suddenly you have all these other characters, Gwen, Akshan, and Vex, with nowhere to go. I think it was a fun experiment, but one that didn't ultimately pan out very well, and one I don't really hope they do again. I think lore events are cool, but they should do it with already established characters instead of forcing all the new ones out to fit this new quote of the storyline they're trying to make. Jeez, I talked about her lore and her character design a lot, so I didn't mention her gameplay at all because it doesn't help that I don't really like the character aesthetically. It doesn't really help that I don't think she has anything left to do narratively or the fact of the missed potential of what she could have been. But her gameplay, on top of it all, is infuriating to play against. Nope. I hope you like your entire ultimate not landing because I pressed W, you stupid fish. Not on Christmas, Warwick, please. At least I can die looking at the nice version of Gwen that I wanted. This little creepy doll thing. So we all know the meme, Gwen is immune. Gwen is immune to your criticism or to your gameplay or whatever it is. You can't hit Gwen. And personally, I don't understand why she even has this move. I guess it's supposed to be the Hallowed Mist, the purity of it comparatively to the Black Mist, but did she need this? I don't know. You know what's one thing I actually find really criminal that they did to her not too long ago? I don't know when they did this little mini rework of her. When they changed how her ult works, because before you'd have to ult, auto attack, ult again, auto attack again, then you get your big ult. It was like you're threading the needle, you throw the needle, snip it, what the hell have I done to my character? And it felt really thematically appropriate, and now that's just gone. You just spam your ult, and Gwen is one of those characters that you feel like you're winning against, you're doing okay, and then she presses Q and ult at the same time, and suddenly your entire health bar evaporated. I think her as well, with the Rift Maker and innate healing that she has in general, that her and Mordekaiser and Silas and Vladimir, I do not understand why there is not yet in League of Legends a healing reduction magic resist item. Like the fact that so many bruisers or tanks or whoever have to build a armor item just to reduce the healing of these crazy healing AP characters sucks, and it always them that ruin it for the mages, because whenever mage items are strong, they're significantly stronger because they can just use the items better. She does have at least that point of merit that currently the only big AP top laners, I guess, are Mordekaiser. So I guess she helps out in that regard, but I would not, if I had the choice of not fighting Gwen, I definitely wouldn't. But I guess it's kind of poetic that this game is over, because next week we get to talk about another pivotal character in the Ruination storyline, which is Hecarim, which I don't have very many better things to say about than Gwanda. But that's fine. So thank you for joining me on this casual champion review this week, fellas. I'll see you next week for the Horseman. And take care of yourselves, okay? Goodbye.